everyone, and welcome to this little video run through of your answers for the study questions for chapters 4 and 5 of Animal Farm. Let's have a look at the questions you were supposed to answer. Here they are, study questions for chapters 4 and 5. How did the animals manage to win the Battle of the Cowshed? What does the character of Mollie eventually come to represent? How do the policies of Napoleon and Snowball differ? What is characteristic about Napoleon's new order of things after having ousted Snowball? And finally, what does Napoleon's eventual building of the windmill seem to indicate? Did he really think it was a bad idea? Now, the first question. How did the animals manage to win the Battle of the Cowshed? Well, some of you wrote that Snowball found a book about Julius Caesar's campaign and therefore knew how to fight back against the humans. Quote, this had been long expected and all preparations had been made. Page 26, line 14, 15. Kudos to you for actually finding evidence in the text to support your claim. You also say that they outplayed Mr. Jones and his men in their attempt to gain control over the farm again. The animals enticed Mr. Jones and his men into the farm where they ambushed them. Boxer killed a man from Foxwood with its iron-shod hooves, and the rest of Mr. Jones and his men ran away in panic. Now, others of you answered Snowball, who had studied an old book of Julius Caesar's campaigns, which he had found in the farmhouse, was in charge of the defensive operations. He gave his orders quickly, and in a couple of minutes, every animal was at his post. Again, sort of along the same lines as the first answer, that it's primarily Snowball's responsibility that the animals defeat the humans because of his knowledge of warfare. All right, now the second question, what does the character of Mollie eventually come to represent? Well, some of you answered that she doesn't care about the politics, meaning that the only important thing for her is herself. She is therefore a traitor to her comrades, so she doesn't want to fight the humans because they are treating her well. The humans like her because she is very compliant and she is pretty, so she is therefore the humans, mainly Mr. Jones's, darling. Her coat was newly clipped and she wore a scarlet ribbon round her forelock. She appeared to be enjoying herself, so the pigeons said. None of the animals ever mentioned Mollie again. Page 31, lines 10 to 13. Yes, again, very good with the quote illustrating your point. This shows that she likes to be around humans because they treat her well, and the animals never mentions her again because they see her as a traitor. True. Why might Mollie respond this way? Well, another group answered that someone who had a high social status in the old system and now turns out to be just like everyone else in the new system might not like or support the new system as much. And this is exactly what happens to Mollie, and I completely agree with that. Now, the third question, how do the policies of Napoleon and Snowball differ? Well, Napoleon, according to some of you, wants his own little dictatorship, an empire. And Snowball wants to spread the idea of animalism to other animals so that they can start a rebellion too. And here again we have a quote. According to Napoleon, what the animals must do was to procure firearms and train themselves in the use of them. According to Snowball, they must send out more and more pigeons and start up rebellion among the animals on the other farms. So there's quite a distinct difference between their strategies or their ambitions here. But that's not all, because as another group says, Snowball wants to build a windmill. After that, they'll only have to work 3 days a week. Whereas Napoleon, he wants to focus on the food production so that they won't starve. And again, we have a quote to illustrate. The animals formed themselves into two factions under the slogans Vote for Snowball and the 3-day week, and Vote for Napoleon and the full manger, which is where the animals usually keep their food. Yes, all right, so we see this sharp division starting to form between Napoleon and Snowball in several areas, really. Now, we know what happens, and what happens is that Napoleon manages to chase Snowball away, And the fourth question asks you, well, what is characteristic about Napoleon's new order of things after having ousted Snowball? Well, one of you said that after Napoleon ousted Snowball, he becomes more of a dictator because he uses his dogs to scare the other animals so that no one goes against him or his opinions. And we have a quote to illustrate this. And the three dogs who happens to be with him growled so threateningly that they accepted his explanation without further question, from page 52. Another group answered, he generally wants to have more control and his methods make him appear more as a dictator. Well, that's very much in agreement with the other group, or the first group. He announced that from now on, the Sunday morning meetings would come to an end. They were unnecessary, he said, and wasted time. In future, all questions relating to the working of the farm would be settled by special committees of pigs presided over by himself. So what he's really doing here in abandoning the whole committee system is that he's actually, to some extent, dismantling the democracy that was part of the farm. Now, the last question: what does Napoleon's eventual building of the windmill seem to indicate? And did he really think it was a bad idea? If you could remember, he very much opposed the building of the windmill when Snowball was advocating it. Well, you're all in agreement here. One of you says that it means that he was only against it because it wasn't his own idea, but he actually thought that the idea was good. We have a quote again to illustrate this. That evening, Squealer explained privately to the other animals that Napoleon had never in reality been opposed to the windmill. Page 38 and 39. Yes, and that's true. So what we see here is that Napoleon is apparently very clever at the political game, so to speak. Political strategics and maneuvering is something that he is very, very good at. He may not say what he really believes, but he seems to get his way, which is a characteristic that we've talked about in regards to Napoleon before. Yes. All right. Good work, everyone. I especially appreciated your ability to illustrate your points of view with examples, quotes from the text. That's very good. That will come in handy later on. Now, for the rest of today's lesson, well, read chapter 6. You may use the audiobook if you like. Here's the link. All right, I'll see you next time.